Now, the central theme of this book is definitely all about that age-old struggle. No, not that one. It's not just a case of good versus evil. This struggle is more about the blossoming of the creative impulse and its antithesis, the relentless onslaught of blind process. Instead of good versus evil, it's more life versus death. The creative spark has its wellspring in the other world. It needs to be nurtured and channeled through into our world. All the while, there is the pressing danger that unyielding process will just sweep it away. Logical steps, indomitably and blindly repeating the rule, like some sort of all-consuming machine. Johnny Walker is one of the more enigmatic characters in this novel. As with Colonel Sanders, the other deeply ingrained and familiar product logo, they seem to be devices used to denote a concept made visible. Colonel Sanders reinforces several times to Hoshino that he is neither a god nor a Buddha, but a metaphysical conceptual object. Johnny Walker appears to be the embodiment of that most ruthless force, namely the automated, unflinching and unrelenting process. A process that, once entrenched, can consume all. It leads to its own logical conclusion, which often turns out to be the exact opposite of the impulse that started it going in the first place. Johnny Walker discusses with Nakata this impersonal drive. He is not doing something he wants to do or deriving any pleasure from it. In his interaction with Nakata, he emphasizes several times doing things in the right order, going through the correct steps and then repeating. He admonishes Nakata that he has to look. That is a rule. Closing your eyes isn't going to change anything. Nothing's going to disappear just because you can't see what's going on. Like any process, it gains a momentum all of its own. It is self-fueling. The making of cat flutes must necessarily lead on to the making of human flutes. This idea is echoed when Kafka reads about Adolf Eichmann in the cabin, the Nazi war criminal who designed the final solution for the Jews. Kafka reads that at his trial, Eichmann couldn't work out why he was there. He was just a technician who'd found the most efficient solution to the problem assigned to him. In the back of the Eichmann book, Kafka reads a penciled note written by Oshima. It's all a question of imagination. Our responsibility begins with the power to imagine. It's just as Yeats said, in dreams begin responsibility. Turn this on its head and you could say that where there's no power to imagine, no responsibility can arise. Just as we see with Eichmann. There is a further echo of this idea with the two visitors Oshima has to deal with in the library, hollow people with no imagination. Dangerous people because they will follow things to a logical conclusion, wherever that leads, without any sort of safety valve or regulator. The use of the Johnny Walker logo is interesting, considering the brand's advertising motto, "Keep walking." The two times we actually see him in the novel, he is perfectly static, in an entrenched position. Johnny Walker does not walk. When he meets Nakata, he requires an intermediary to bring him to him. He remains seated, and is seated again when the boy called Crow discovers him in a clearing. The text describes him as wearing thick-soled walking boots, but these seem to be just for show. He tells the boy, "I'm thinking of taking all the flutes I've made and creating a much larger, far more powerful flute out of them, a supersized flute that becomes a system unto itself." Further, he states, "I am a man entirely without prejudices, like history or the weather, unbiased, and since I am, I can transform into a kind of system." Toro, the black cat, reveals to Hoshino a further clue. He tells him he needs to kill something that wishes to reach the entrance stone. This something doesn't have any real form, it changes shape depending on the situation. Toro further explains that it's probably not all that dangerous when it's on the move. Once it stops moving, though, watch out. That's when it's dangerous. The creature that emerges from Nakata seems to be the vulnerable, mobile form of Johnny Walker. A form, ironically, without legs. Like much of Murakami's work, the other world figures heavily. The other world is the creative wellspring that feeds our more regulated world. Like the Grail Castle or the world of Fairy, this world is not readily accessible. Ways can open up, but then just as easily close again. Anything truly creative derives from that world. The two chords in Miss Saiki's song that so affected Kafka were found in that world, appearing as two lizards in a far-off, distant room. Ideas, emotions, and concepts have form and autonomy in that other world. That is where Kafka must travel to end the process. His outer journey mirrors his inner journey, and vice versa. A descent into the labyrinth is required in order to confront the monster. You sit at the edge of the world. I am in a crater that is no more. Words without letters, standing in the shadow of the door. The moon shines down on a sleeping lizard. Little fish rain down from the sky. Outside the window there are soldiers, steeling themselves to die. Kafka sits in a chair by the shore, thinking of the pendulum that moves the world. It seems, when your heart is closed, the shadow of the unmoving sphinx becomes a knife that pierces your dreams. The drowning girl's fingers search for the entrance stone, and more. Lifting the hem of her azure dress, she gazes at Kafka on the shore. It is, of course, Oedipus's destiny to solve the riddle of the unmoving sphinx.